Hello, and welcome to Mind Your Head, a space for people to share their stories, talk openly and honestly about their own mental health challenges, and to give some listeners some comfort in knowing you're not alone. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we record this podcast, the Gubbi Gubbi people. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Indigenous peoples. We honour their enduring connection to the land, waters and culture, and recognise their invaluable contributions they make to our communities. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. This episode is proudly supported by True Protein. Use the code MindYourHead at the checkout to score $25 off your next order. This episode is brought to you by TLC Recovery Centre on the Sunshine Coast. Head to TLC Sunshine Coast, use the code TLC15MYH to receive 15% off and experience it for yourself. Gus, so good to meet you, mate. I've been such a massive fan of yours for a while now, and thanks so much for making the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it. And I think first off, I just want to know how you're doing. How's the body? How's the spirit? How's the mind? I know you've had some pretty heavy time lately with your father's health, and so before anything else, mate, I just want to check in on you.
That's really nice. I check in with lots of people, and I think you probably do too. And it's lovely when someone throws it back at you and goes, "Hold on a sec, how are you going?" Well, to be vulnerable and to be real, which is what we're all about. It's been a really tough last 3 to 6 months on a few different levels. Ever since I left Triple M, actually, made the decision to go Gotcha for Life full time because I was sort of half-assing all the jobs that I was doing because I was trying to juggle too much. And I've just sort of found it hard to find my rhythm. And I love my team, and I've missed my team, my producers and co-hosts and all that sort of stuff. So it took me a little while to work that out. Then I got sick. I had a gallbladder issue, which ended up turning into a 4-hour under full general, which was meant to be a keyhole. And then, as you said, my dad has not been well, so very emotional with him. But, as of today, mate, he is battling away, sucking on the fentanyl lollipops, and he's away with the pixies, But there are times where you just get a little bit of clarity with him, and it's just gold, It sort of takes you back to really beautiful times together. So, yeah, I'm back on track now, but it hasn't been easy this first 6 months. But I was just in America. I did a talk at a schools conference in America. And I think that was the moment where I just sort of went, just sort of feel good, and it went well. And just, yeah, it's just that little turning point.
Yeah, you gotta find those little glimpses of happiness and hope sometimes in the darkness sometimes. And, my mum and dad were in the mines for the last 16 years over in WA. And they've just retired. They've moved back to the sunny coast. And during that time, I would only see them once a year for Christmas if our schedules line up, because I'm in the mines too. So I always had this silly thought that my parents were always going to live forever, that they were always, they're always going to look the same, they're always going to be there. And watching them age over the last 16 years, but I only saw them once a year. And I remember one Christmas they came back to the sunny coast and dad's got grey hair, and then mum's got grey hair, and I'm thinking, and then they're all white hair now, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And I spoke to my older brother. I was like, man, our parents are getting old. Like, for me, I always thought they were these superheroes. They were always going to be there for us and always going to, nothing was going to ever happen to them. And then I realized over the 16 years that were gone away for work, I saw them 16 times, and now they've moved back to the sunny coast, and all my effort and energy is spending quality time with my mum and dad. Because I think that 16 years in that break was me being a little bit not fearful of parents, but I wouldn't be like mates. Like, I would always sort of not tell them sort of everything. And now we're at an age where I'm 34. My parents are all sort of grown adults now, that the relationship I have with my mum and dad, we're like best friends rather than, they're up here and I'm sort of the child down here. And I love that relationship that I have with them now.
Well, you wait until you're 54 and you're actually the parent and they're the child. That's sort of where I'm at. And there's a couple of interesting things there for me. it was my mum's birthday on the weekend. Mum and dad have been separated for forever, and mum lives by herself. But we get along really well. So I worked at Channel 9 in the morning, did Wide World of Sports, and then I picked mum up. And she said all she wanted, we normally go to this Chinese for Mother's Day, like any sort of major thing, we go to this one Chinese restaurant. And she said, "Oh, I just don't fancy Chinese." I said, "Okay." And she goes, what do you want, mum?" And she goes, "I want a Vicky roast," which is my wife's roast.
Yeah, nice.
So I ring up Vix and go, "Babe, up to the IGA, do your best. You got to whip up a roast for mum, no pressure," because mum talks about my wife's, the way she does the potatoes and all this sort of stuff. She's English and she does it in a certain way, and it is yummy.
It's the love.
Anyway, so that's what happened on Sunday. Then she stayed Sunday night, and then I dropped her back on Monday morning. And it was just lovely. We watched a couple of old war films. We watched a little bit of footy. We had the roast. And I said to mum, there's this stat I use now in my talks. And I used it only yesterday, that if you're a parent that has a child who's 18 years or above, 90% of the time that you're going to spend with them face to face is done. And you're nodding your head. So you know that. When I first heard that, I'm like, what? I've got a 25, a 23, and a 21-year-old, two in London, one in Whistler. I'm like, well, that's true for me. We FaceTime now, which might make it, but I'm not with them. I'm not with them. And that's 16 times in 16 years. You can't do anything about that now, but probably if you had your time back, you'd see them a little bit more. So good on you for making that and making that decision, and now going to fix it for the next bit.
Yeah, and just see them sort of become grandparents too, I think. To see them a little bit softer and a little bit, because my dad came from a very abusive upbringing, childhood, and he was very hardened as a father, and instilled great values in us. But to see him as a grandfather and see how soft he is, and I'm like, Dad, where was that when we were growing up? I would have loved that.
Where's the love? They always say that you're a better grandparent than you are a parent because you can always hand them back, right? So it's sort of like all the love, no real responsibility. And fortunately, I'm not at that stage yet. But all three of my kids are in love at the moment. So, you never know these things. But they assure me that no one's having sex before marriage. So we'll be waiting until they're married at least.
So what I would love to chat you about, because I recently watched your TED talk you did a couple of years ago. Yeah, and it really hit home for me with my story, because in that chat you said 65,000 Australians attempt to take their life, and in 2017 that I was one of those stats. I was in a really dark place for a really long time. Didn't have the tools and tactics and ways to get out of that spot. I grew up in a family that was very safe and loving, but again, that emotional maturity, that emotional connection wasn't modeled to me. So I grew up thinking that I got on with it like everyone else. I pushed it down. If something came up, I looked around and thought, well, everyone else is pushing it down, so I'll just keep doing that too. And in that talk, you mentioned that when you're first vulnerable, on your radio show, it took a lot of courage to go against the script, pretty much. Like you told your producers, your work colleagues, like I'm gonna talk about this, and it took a lot of guts to do that. But in that moment, when all the calls started flooding in, what did that moment teach you about the power of vulnerability?
Oh, I've always worn my heart on my sleeve, but I haven't had the confidence necessarily to always action it. And that morning, I decided I wanted to action it. But I thought when you build a radio show from nothing at 4:30 in the morning, when you're on air at 6, it's a blank canvas. I thought they might shove it in at 6:15, through to the keeper. Not many people would be listening to it, and that's fine. But, I was on with Matty Johns and MG, Mark Guy, who are two big buffhead rugby league players. They went, nah, let's do it in the Hollywood hour, 8 o'clock, 8:05, out of the 8 o'clock news, which is traditionally the time when most people are listening. So I went, oh, that gave me a lot of confidence that my work colleagues, who normally are just making fun of me, and that was the show, were actually like, oh, no, this is important enough to put it in a really good time. So once we put that call out, I thought that was going to be the end of it, to be honest with you. But that's when the producer came in and said, all 33 lines are flashing, let's go. And we had an hour and a half of back-to-back phone calls where people had big moments of silence where you knew they were still on the line, but they were just trying to get the words out. The words are being stuck. And that's when I realized how many people worry alone, and all they needed was a bit of permission to be able to talk about it. And we'd been on for 6 years, that show. They felt safe with us. So to get all those calls, I think, was built up over a period of time. If I'd come on at week one of our brand new show and started talking like that, I don't think we would have got the same response. But because we'd built up a really loyal group of people that loved us, they felt safe to go, thanks for telling your story, Gus, but I want to tell you mine. And that's when I drove home to my wife and said, there's so many people worrying alone. What can we do about it? And I was just very lucky that we're able to get the funding to do Man Up. And then that changed my life, because I was about 10 days into filming of that, and it wasn't a job anymore. It was like, this is a calling. And that sounds a little wanky, I know, but I actually felt that. And I came home and I said, this is going to be bloody great. And I'm just going to put everything into it. And we shot for 60 odd days, and we've had millions of people watch it now. And it's changed my life, because Gotcha for Life came off the back of it. And, it's sort of 9, 10 o'clock in the morning when you and I are talking now. I've already done 3 conversations around Gotcha for Life this morning, and I hope that you can feel my passion and excitement to talk about it again, because I don't think there's a more important conversation. And I want to thank you for you sharing your moment with me and the listeners a moment ago. I'm sure you've spoken about it before, but it's really important for blokes that look like you, whether you like it or not, good looking blokes like you who are looked upon as Aussie blokes being vulnerable. It'll change someone else and go, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. And that's all we're really trying to do, right? Model that new way of behavior, because the old way ain't working. 7 men, 2 women will take their own life in Australia today. By the time we finish this conversation, let's say it's an hour, every 8 minutes someone will attempt. Well, you and I don't want to live in an Australia like that. So more of these conversations, the better, and normalizing this conversation, the better. So I tip my lid to you for what you're doing.
I appreciate it, mate. And it doesn't sound wanky at all saying that's your calling, because, I have found the same passion and drive and feeling during this podcast and what I've created in the last two years. Because without this podcast, I wouldn't have the relationship I have with my dad. My dad came on the podcast, and he never spoke about his childhood, and I never spoken about the inner demons and the dark days that I always kept it away from dad. And I said, I'll make a deal with you, dad. You tell me about your childhood and I'll tell you about what I went through, because there was a bit of a blockage there where we both weren't being honest, and I didn't understand why he is the way that he is. I didn't understand what he went through. I didn't know why he would get triggered at certain things. And I just was like, Dad's a bit of a dickhead. But now that I've just, now that I've sat down with him, we shot our episode last year and I sat down with him and we were completely vulnerable and honest, and something that seeing Dad in such a vulnerable state that I've never seen him before, it brought our relationship so much tighter, so much closer. Like he gives me hugs and kisses and all these sorts of things that Dad never sort of did growing up. But it allowed him to, like, all that weight, this happened when he was, 15, 16 years old. Dad's 70 something now. And to think that it's taken him 60 years of like holding this on, suppressing all the emotion, putting that mask on, pretending like everything's okay on the outside, and really, like, I knew that he was really battling. And to see the shift in one conversation, 2-hour conversation that me and my father had, he's so much lighter. He jokes around, takes a piss out of himself. Like, he's not as serious. And I could just see, like, I knew that maybe that he was wanting to have that conversation for a while, that you don't know how to initiate it. Like, especially you come from that generation that my dad came from. It's very hard to initiate, sit down with your son and let's be vulnerable together. But I think that was such a life-changing moment between my father and I, that's how I want to model it to my future kids as well. So I definitely feel your passion, mate, because it's something that I wake up every day. I work away in the mines, and I wake up every day going, I would love to be able to sit down like we are right now, and we can do this every single day for the rest of my life and talk about this sort of thing, because it's something that lights me up. And I've experienced so many friends and family that have gone through some dark times where I'm always like, why didn't you talk to me about it? Like, why is it still a stigma? Why can't we just sit down and why can't you call me up? Like, why is there still a disconnect there? And that's something that I'm trying to change, and something that I'm trying to model for the younger generation coming through. Because it's we always want a quick fix. I understand that, but it's also going to be like a generational thing where we can look the generations under us. They can look up and say, all right, if they're doing that, then it's okay for me to do that. Because when I was growing up, there wasn't anyone sort of to look to be like, all right, well, who's having a cry? Like, who's okay to tell me that it's okay to have a cry? Like right now, like even the women, like, you're men, you're meant to be like the supporters of strong people. And I'm just like, man, like I want to model that to my kids, to my daughters, to my sons, to my people in my community, that it's okay. Like, yeah, we play footy. Like I played footy for, 20 odd years, playing it professionally. And never once was there a conversation with my teammates about how you're going, like how you're handling the stress, the anxieties, like, there's a lot of drug and alcohol abuse in that environment that we never spoke about. And even doing the podcast, I've had ex teammates reach out and go, "Mate, I'm struggling too. Like, you know how you were struggling during that time?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was struggling too." And I'm like, "Well, like this kind of thing you had in your radio show, like it just opened up the doors for all these like masculine, manly men quote." That were also struggling so deeply with things, behind closed doors. But as soon as you came with a footy field or at training, you sort of put that mask on, you put that happy sort of face on. But there was never like that hand on the shoulder going, all right, well, what are you actually dealing with? Because there's what I love about team sport is that you bring, all walks of life together. But I feel like at some points it was very surface level. And I was like, well, let's all have fun with each other, share a beer, all good. I love that side of it, joke around. But if you're in a pickle, like I want you to know that we can talk about it. We can get through it. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I remember one of my ex teammates. I shared with him that I was going through some really really dark times, and he had previously gone through it himself. And he said to me, "Look, you're entering the dark tunnel at the moment, and I can't tell you when you're going to get out of it, and I don't know how long it's going to be for, but I want you to know that there was always light in the tunnel." And I was like, whatever, whatever. It seems so dark and so deep right now, but it took me 10 years to get out of that dark tunnel. I went
Wow.
through a lot of lows. And after the 10 years, he still lives in New Zealand when I was playing over there. And I messaged him and I was like, I hadn't talked to him for a while. And I just want to I said to him, mate, remember 10 years ago when you said that, there's light at the end of the tunnel? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I'm just letting you know now I'm out of it. And he was like,
I'm
well
starting
done.
to put the sunnies on, brother.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, oh, he's right. Like there is light at the end of the tunnel. So that's the thing that I try to get through to people is that, your journey's different. Like what you're going through is different. Your circumstances are different, but there's always going to be light at the end of the tunnel.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, there's so much stuff there to talk about. But, basically, I say it's man up, speak up.
Mm.
We've been told, especially in New Zealand, I've spoken to Benji Marshall about this. He goes, mate, even I had trouble at times with my family telling me I wasn't very good at footy. I'm like, oh my God. He said, imagine how my cousin went. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I get it totally. And it's so important and whatever, but it's just, you can't blame anyone either. Like you can't blame your dad because he learnt from your granddad and now you know that stuff. But there's so many conversations that just aren't spoken. So when you sat down with your dad, it just opened up a whole new line. You now see your dad in a very different way. And now he can be a different person because he's sort of crept out and gone, oh, it's okay. Oh, I'll creep a little bit more. Oh, it's still okay. Oh, here I am. So and I'm going to the mines next week up at Weipa, up with Rio Tinto.
Mhm.
And I've been up there last year. Bloody fantastic. Love it. And I walk in there now and I have proper conversations. But God, the first time you go, it's all a bit like, hey guys, let's talk about some feelings. And they're like,
Isn't it? Yeah.
what the fuck are you talking about? So I understand now that we're changing it and we need to change it because my son and my two daughters, they notice it in their partners that it is better. But we're so far away from being good because those numbers are still sort of horrific. So yeah, that emotional muscle, you guys would have been playing footy, running around pre-season, sand hills, getting yourselves ready, getting to the finals, feeling $1,000,000, working through injuries, just muscling up because you had practiced it. And that was what you expected to do. But to actually turn up and say to someone, hey, I need some help, my mental fitness is not going too good, people just go, well, let's replace him. He's obviously a weak link. So why would you ever talk to anyone about it when
Mm.
that's what you think is going to happen? But I talk all the time to guys that the emotional muscle, this one up here in your head, that gets you to do things you shouldn't do, and it stops you do things that you should do. That's the most powerful muscle, and that's the one we should be working on. All the other stuff we practice enough; it takes care of itself. But we don't practice enough on that mental fitness, and that's why I call it mental fitness, because I think it makes it easier to understand that there's exercises to get physically fit, and I can give you exercises to get mentally fit. So let's start working on both.
Yeah, and I love that analogy with the mental health and the mental fitness, because I was having a chat the other day with a friend, and we're talking about his own mental health, and he just wants to get. He almost looked at it like a good mental health was like a destination. He just wanted to get there already. He didn't want to go through the hardship and the pain and the suffering and the ups and the downs. And I had to sort of tell him that it's not a destination, it's a direction. So you work towards good mental health, and there's life is going to throw curveballs at you. Life's going to throw, all sorts of setbacks and challenges at you. And it's not about just getting to a destination, because we're never always going to have, we're never going to always be at this good mental health, but it's more so a direction you're moving towards. And um, doing little, like you said, the mental fitness and having small little habits in your day that it's going to put you in the right direction. And I've had a lot of concussions when I was playing rugby that stopped me from, pretty much had to medically retire from rugby. And there are a lot of things that I noticed that other people noticed before me, but I noticed later in life about my mood swings and my irritability, maybe some anger issues. And I've gone through my own journey with my wife now. Well, we actually got married a couple of days ago. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I know.
congratulations.
Thank you very much. And she sat me down a couple of years ago, and I had a few sort of mental health episodes, and she pretty much gave me an ultimatum. She goes, "Look, I love you. I want to be with you, but I can't. I'm not going to accept this standard for our kids one day. You
Yeah.
know, I can't let you be, acting like this around a kid. So you have an ultimatum. You go search for the answers. You go figure out, because I know deep down you think there's something up, and I always knew something was up. I was just procrastinating. I was too scared to look further in. And she goes, "Oh, I'm gone. Like I don't want to be doing this." And I was like, "Fuck, I can't lose her." So that set me on a journey of seeing us. I went down to the Macquarie University in Sydney and went to a concussion clinic in there, and talked about with all the specialists around CTE and all those sort of symptoms from repetitive head knocks. And they advised me to go to a psychiatrist, and they put me on a spectrum of bipolar. And it really connected the dots of who I am, my personality wise, and gave me a lot of clarity around. It's not so much like, oh, that's a sort of, it's going to be with you forever, but it's more, I look at it as like, I have a checklist every day. And if I'm feeling a little bit low, Jordan's like, that's my wife, Jordan. She's like, have you gone to the gym? I go, not yet. She goes, go to the gym. And she goes,
Yeah.
what have you been eating? And I'm like, oh, I've been eating this. She goes, have a bit of this, have a bit of this. Or have you had a sauna or a cold plunge? Have you chatted to your mum and dad? Have you gone into nature? Like, I have a checklist of things that I can rely on. And once I don't have to tick them all off, but I'll tick a few off, and then I'll go, oh, I'm feeling a lot better now. So that's just like my little guidelines of my own personal journey, and the things that I have to do in my life, sort of almost my non-negotiables that I have.
Hey, how good's Jordan?
Yeah, she's the best, honestly. She is
um,
the best
how
thing.
did you ask? How did you ask it? Were you romantic?
Um, Yeah, so we did 2 years ago. We went to Europe on a 4 week holiday, and we were in Santorini in Greece. And she knew, like she's onto it. So she knew something was coming. Like um, her birthday was going to be in Paris, and she thought we might be the city, the city of love. Like we'll be in Paris. Like propose on her birthday, and we did this 3 hour walk around Santorini around I'm not too sure if you've been there before, but
No,
there's
I
like,
haven't.
yeah, there's a bit of a walk down the coastline, and there's like nice little lookouts. It takes about 3 hours, and I thought this would be a good view. So we're slogging away in the Greece heat, and I've got no pockets in my board shorts. I had to stuff the ring down my undies So then I set up the camera. We're just going to do a nice little camera shot, and then I've had to like reach down into my parenting position. She's thinking, what's going on here? And then
Mate,
down on one knee, and the ring box is full of sweat, like a cricket box. And I'm thinking,
wow.
and then that was the moment there, and it was we've obviously been through so much, as
And
a
that's the
couple.
standard she was happy to accept, not the
Yeah,
standard from the 2 years earlier.
no, well, that's exactly right. That's the thing that we spoke in my vows the other day, was that, you know, you got to find someone, a best friend, someone that challenges you, motivates you to be a better version of yourself every day, and challenges me to be a better man. And even her saying that about the kids thing was, all right, well, that's also a massive motivator for me as a person, as a man growing up, is how do I
Yeah.
be the best father I can be? How do I, because I take that I take that so seriously, that responsibility of being a father. And I think back to myself, like you said before, like, you can't blame my dad. You can't blame, what the circumstances or anything like that. But I look back and go, well, what can I learn from my father? What can I learn from his upbringing? And how can I change the things that are most important for me as I become a father? And, the work that I've done over the last 3 years, I feel like I'm a different person. I feel like I'm worlds away for what I was. Yeah, I still have my days. I still have my down days. I still have those days where I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel like getting out of bed today, but I do it anyway. I don't let those days sort of hold me back as I
Yeah.
used to.
Yeah, you got mentally fit. You've worked on it. You got your exercises. You did Macquarie Uni. You got people looking at you. You were brave enough to do that. And then when they told you what you needed to do, you went and did the work. I mean, and like your friend said, I just want to be mentally healthy, mate. Like you said, it's a destination. But once you get to the destination, do you ever really? Do you stay? Does the destination necessarily be good to you all the time? No, it's a continual deal, and that's what is so wonderful about life. That's those ups and downs, the roller coaster. But if you got your village around you, you got your people, you got people that love you, and you're vulnerable with them, and you can have warts and all convos without any judgment. You can get through anything.
I've always asked my guests, what are your 3 non-negotiables for living a healthy and full life? For me, it's movement, community, and good nutrition. I've learned that what you fill your body with plays a massive role in how you feel physically and mentally. That's why I use True Protein. They're an Aussie brand doing things the right way. Clean, natural supplements with no artificial additives or fillers. Everything's made in-house in Sydney's northern beaches using the highest quality ingredients sourced from around the world. Whether it's supporting energy, improving focus, or reducing fatigue, their products genuinely help me show up better every single day. And just like Mind Your Head, they live by values I stand by. Be true, be you, and take care of your whole self. This episode is brought to you by TLC Recovery Centre on the Sunshine Coast. Whether you're chasing peak performance or just need to reset, TLC has everything you need. Infrared saunas to help detox your body, reduce inflammation, improve circulation, and calm the nervous system, leaving you feeling lighter, clearer, and more recovered after every session. They've got cold plunges to reduce inflammation, boost mood and mental clarity, and build resilience. They've got compression boots to speed up muscle repair, and massage therapists who know exactly what your body needs. But what really sets TLC apart? The people. The owners are the kind of good humans you want in your corner. Down to earth, genuinely care, and deeply invested in the local community. Head to TLC Sunshine Coast, use the code TLC15MYH to receive 15% off and experience it for yourself. Absolutely. You mentioned earlier on about the Man Up documentary, and I felt like I watched it, and I felt like it wasn't just a series, it was almost your grief in real time. How did making that doco shift the way you saw yourself, your friendships, and what it really means to check in on people that we love?
I reckon I was a little bit in a bubble before I took Man Up on.
Mm.
And that is just because had lived quite a sheltered sort of, growing up. I was very safe. I didn't want for much. And, I went to a nice school, and then I did my gap year, and then I got a job, and it was just all pretty comfy. And I probably had some ideas and thoughts around things that were a bit sheltered. And Man Up just made me look at the world in a very different way. And the easiest way to explain it to you and your listeners is I just burst that bubble and went, righto, what's out there? for me to learn and to be interested and, just be curious. That curiosity piece for me is absolutely key for the last 10 years, I reckon. Just why do you feel that way when someone says something that I'm just like, well, that doesn't seem to make any sense, or why are they wearing that, or why are they doing that? I'm curious now rather than sitting there,
Judgmental
like
or
a
anything like that.
sniper,
Mm,
trying to throw barbs and stuff. But I've also, always been a bit of a jolly fellow who likes to take the piss and have a bit of a laugh. So there was that point where I did take the piss, wasn't trying necessarily to be nasty, but it could come across that way maybe if
mm,
you didn't know me or if you just heard it. So yeah, a bit more kindness, a bit more curiosity came from the Man Up program, and then I realized very quickly that Gotcha for Life is all about being just present and two ears, more listening than talking, which is hard for someone like me, who always feels like he wants to say something. So listening to your story, I'm continually working to just let him keep talking, let him keep talking. Don't throw your own story in there. But I'm trying to get banter with you as well. So we get this connection and it makes it interesting. So I've got a continual battle in my own head around that. But yeah, Gotcha for Life made me, really understand how important curiosity is. And I suppose that's the greatest thing that I can offer my three kids. And they're very proud of not just me, but mum as well, who's been on this journey with me. And, we were in America the other day. We did a 90-minute workshop with a whole lot of people in a community that had lost someone who'd taken his own life. And, we walked out of there and I said, look, the same conversations are being had everywhere around the world. We're all the same at the
mm.
end of the day. We all crave connection. We all crave a feeling of being wanted and just that kindness that comes from being in that village, and I just feel very blessed, like I said before, that I can get up and chat about it and people get something from it.
For sure, and I think we touched on earlier is that so many of us, so many men, we wear disguises, or we wear masks in different situations. I know from my personal experience, I felt like I was a chameleon. I would change myself depending on the situation, depending on the people. I would always try to um, I was always trying to almost put on an act. It was almost performative to make sure people knew that I was always happy, that I was always in a good mood, and
Yeah,
even even with my partner Jordan now is that she asked me in the car one day. She goes, "Do you have trouble telling me things?" And I kind of broke down and started crying, and I always wanted her to see me as Superman. I always wanted her to see me as this unshakable, strong character that if anything happened in life, she could always rely on me. I didn't want to seem like I was very hesitant even telling her things about my darkest times because I didn't want her to look at me and go, "Oh, I'm a little bit worried that he might slip there again." Like I was always sort of making sure that she saw me as this character almost. And she said, "That's not realistic though, Elliot. The thing that I love about you is your imperfections. The things that breeds that connection is being human, is having imperfections. Like if you think you're going to be perfect around me, like I can look straight through that. It's obvious that you're not." And I'm like, "Oh shit." So I think those things, we always wear masks in certain situations, and having that healthy relationship I have with Jordan allows me to put the mask down, that I don't need to be anyone else but me. And if I'm having a shit time, if I'm having a downtime, if I'm feeling great, if I feel, amazing, it's okay to share it all and share exactly who you are. Do you ever think about what could have been if you had, your mate was able to have an honest conversation with you?
couple of things there, from what you said before I answer your question. Throw away perfect, and
Mm,
Jordan, your missus has got that,
mm,
and she's teaching you that, and you won't always get it right because it's entrenched in you this other Superman part. And there's nothing wrong to strive for that either, by the way. Like, we don't have to burst into tears every 5 minutes and have big, deep, and meaningfuls all the time. We love to live in Superman banter, big, deep breath, go into a party, take the piss, have a bit of fun. It's exhausting after a while, but hey, that's something cool about being an Aussie and a Kiwi. I think is that we are cool like that. Um, if my friend could talk to me, like that's the dream, right? We had so many opportunities when we were away, when we we're working for Toshiba, where we just talked banter, and fun and work and stuff that we were practiced in chatting about. And I just was never ever felt like I was at his level where I could ever question him and say, "Oh, by the way, how's everything going?" If he just said, "I'm great," I'd go, "Awesome," and I'd just get on with it. You know how there's certain roles that you play in this life, and he certainly was the leader of our relationship. If I knew now what I know, and I could go back to one of those conferences, we're talking about sort of late 90s when IT was going nuts, and we went to Hawaii and Fiji and Bali and New Zealand to ski for a week, and there was a couple of hours of work thrown in there on the fourth day, and that was meant to be our work conference. It was just fun, and there was money, and it was just lots of fun, and he was the boss of all that. So we had heaps of opportunities to sit and have a beer and whatever. I would love one of those moments where I'd actually question him harder than I did. Or if he had enough emotional muscle to say to me, "Hey, putting on a bit of an act here, got some stuff going on, would love your help with it." Like if he did that, and I know what I know now, I've got no doubt that we would have got him the help that he required, and would have made his life bearable and livable and got him back to a place where he was happy to wake up every day. Um, I suppose before I started doing this work, I used to shout at the sky. I used to get pissed on the anniversary of his death. I was angry still, I'm just not in a good place. And it's like, why, and blame game and all that jazz. I don't do that anymore. I've learnt stuff about that, and I'm very much at peace with him now. But I'm still absolutely gutted. And I spoke to a bloke this morning who lost his brother and then his best mate within 3 weeks. They both took their own life. Like, I don't know how you come back from that. It's happening all the time. So that's why this work we're doing is so powerful. We would love those moments back. We'd love one more cup of tea. We'd love one more walk, one more beer, one more game of footy to sit and watch together, where perhaps we could break down the conversation to something that's not just banter, a conversation of gravity. But we can't, can we? So I actually asked a couple of mates of mine who knew him really well the other day. I said, reckon he'd be proud of what I'm doing? And they're like, "Mate, come on." And I'm like, "Yeah, just like, I just hope that I'm not a religious person. I just hope that there's something up there and he's there and he's going, fucking good on you, mate."
Yeah,
Um,
I really love that.
yeah.
Yeah, because you've created, this movement you created with Gotcha for Life. You're giving people the permission to speak and to be vulnerable and to be seen and be heard. What I'm really interested in, was there a moment, was there a person that gave you the permission to know that it's okay, excuse me, that it's okay not to be okay?
Yeah, for sure. Her name was Leanne. I still see her every now and again. She's a professional, bit of a spiritual lady, to be honest with you. The first time I went and saw her, she got me to sort of put the crystals in my hand, and I'm sort of going, "Oh, I'm not quite sure how this is going to last." But I went, "No, come on, mate. You've paid your dough. Just sit down and listen." And anyway, I reckon not that she saved my life, because I didn't need saving, but she certainly made me think about things in a way that made sure that I didn't fuck it up,
Mm.
And I walked out of those sessions. They were 45 minutes to an hour. She's a gas bag. I'm a gas bag. So they went longer. Every time I walked out of the room, there was someone sitting there going, "You're over," every time. And because we just, never got to the bottom of stuff. But I walked into those places sometimes as heavy. I mean, I'm heavy anyway, but I was heavy. And I walked out of there and I was floating. I was floating. And I'm like, gee, how can this hour have been so powerful for me? And that's when I realized that she was really super special to me. And I spoke about her on the radio, and then people would come on socials and say, "Can I get that number of that lady?" So she's seen maybe 1,000 people. Um, and she still charges me, by the way, too, which I think,
Yeah. How's that work?
well, after a while, I might get a freebie, but no. it's the best money I've ever spent because, like I said, she stopped me fucking things up,
Mm.
and she's given me this power to be able to talk to other people about, hey, I was the last person to think about going and seeing someone. I did, and it changed my life. So take it from me that it's worth having a crack at finding a professional, because sometimes people find it hard to talk to their friends and family. As long as you're talking to somebody, whether you're journaling and get that shit out of your head, or whether you're talking to a professional or a mate, just getting it out of your head is absolutely more than halfway there.
For sure, and I totally resonate with that, because that's something that was holding me back, was speaking to my family and friends about it, about the really dark times. I knew that they would give me sympathy. I knew that they would treat me different. And I don't blame them for it, because anyone you love that are telling you sort of these really dark, scary thoughts that I was having, it's natural for them to, to show you some sympathy and to start treating you differently. However, the treating me differently almost enhanced the feeling that I was different. And I was thinking, oh, I don't want to talk to them, because they're always like, just leave Elliot alone, like almost like babying me a little bit. So what I found really helpful was what you said then, was speaking to a professional. And I had the exact same feeling when I went and spoke to a professional for the first time. I walked away after an hour feeling so light, like you're floating. I was just like, this is the best feeling ever. I didn't realize that I needed this so much. And it was almost like I connected with her really, really well. And that's another thing. I think a lot of people, they find someone, they didn't connect well, and then they go, oh, that's it, it's not for me. And I think the lesson there is, just keep searching. You will find someone that you will definitely connect with. And just because it doesn't happen the first time or the second time, trust me, you will find someone that you can connect with. And um, I word vomited for about an hour, and she goes, "Yep, that's your hour up." And I'm like, "Is that it?" She goes, "Yep, I'll see you next week." But I needed someone to treat me like that. I needed someone to be like, for me to know that they're not going to go home and lose sleep over Elliot, even though it's their job, it's a profession, they care about me. I know that if it was my mum and dad, they would just be worrying, worrying so deeply about me. And I found, that was such a big step for me. I did five sessions with her, and she pretty much didn't talk at all. She was just letting me get, 15 years of depression, of anxiety, of feeling like I wasn't worthy enough, or all these things that were that just snowballed since I was a kid, that I just never, I never got on top of. And over the years, it got bigger and bigger and grew and grew. And, I was 20, I was 28 when I first chatted to someone about it. And it was the best feeling that I've ever had, was having that. And I go, well, it almost became addictive, that I want to keep feeling like this. Like, I want to keep sharing. I want to keep talking about it. Like, stuff this, suppressing, your thoughts and emotions. Stuff this. That is not working for me. That's never worked for me. And that's what I get through to some of my friends. I'm like, have you chatted to someone about it? No, it's scary. I go, honestly, mate, I'm telling you, it may be scary, but I'm letting you know, no, it is the best thing that I've ever done. And it was you know, I get a lot of people asking for advice and that sort of thing, and I say, you know, talk, like what you preach as well with Got You for Life, is to talk to someone. If you feel comfortable with a mum and dad, or a brother or sister, an auntie and uncle, a best friend, you know, if that's down your alley, that's sweet. If it's going to see professional, I know it could be a bit daunting sitting in a room with a complete stranger, but that honestly, I think, you know, that did save my life. I think I don't know where I would have been if I didn't take that first step forward and actually have a chat to someone. And they made me feel like I wasn't alone. They made me feel like all the things that was going inside your head that you were projecting out into the world. She made me feel like, you're not the only one to go through this. You're not different.
Did you tell her?
Did I tell her that? I'll be honest with you, Gus. I didn't tell her that.
Okay, so write down right now so you don't forget. As soon as you hang up from me, you're getting hold of that lady and you're going to tell her, because she needs to hear it, because she hears so much drama. I remember when I first told Deanne, she was like, no one ever tells me that. Like, it's so good for them to hear it. So don't be shy about being as open, saying, I don't know. I don't want to be over dramatic, but I think you might have saved my life.
Mm.
That will be awesome for her. And it takes a lot of guts to go and see someone. And that's why I've got a couple of tactics which may help your listeners. Is if a bloke is strong enough, brave enough to tell you that he's going to go and see someone, take the fucking day off work and go with him. You don't have to sit in the office with him, but drive him, her, sit in the waiting room. When he or her get asked to come in, you sit there and read the Women's Weekly from 1975, and you just wait for them to come out, and then you go for lunch or you go for a walk, and then this is what about being a gotcha for life friend is, not about state of origin and having a few beers at the pub and having a screaming at the telly. Proper friendship is that type of stuff. Days off work for important stuff, so you're there supporting your friends and stuff. And also, like you say, if there's no connection, I was lucky enough with Leanne, you were lucky enough with your lady. Stats will tell you that it takes 6 people to see before you find someone who connects.
Wow.
So if you and I found someone in one go, that means there's someone else out there that's given it multiple goes and they're still going, well, what's this bloody professional talk to people things about? It's a load of rubbish. It's not for me. No, it is for you. You just haven't found the right person to connect with. So it's that continue emotional muscle to get back up again and go and see another person, pay another wad of money and go, right, is this the right person for me? It's hard work. That's why mental fitness is what we call it. It's like your physical fitness. You can't do it. You can't run a marathon after a month. It's going to take you a long time to get it right, but it's the most important conversations you should be having. So keep going. And same thing with medication. Sometimes the doctors aren't right. They get the meds wrong. They get the wrong combos. Makes you worse. Makes you feel worse. I never want to feel like this again. It's all about keep going back to the well. Keep checking it. Keep trying to work it all out, and you will get there if you need it. But don't do it alone. That worrying alone piece, you said it earlier. I've got it on the back of all our trucker caps at Gotcha. Don't worry alone. It's if you just do that, you're telling somebody, and that way that you won't fuck it up, because when we come up with our own mind and our own thoughts, we make so many poor mistakes, so many poor decisions. So don't worry alone. Find someone you can talk to in some capacity.
I totally agree. And just for my listeners, what is Gotcha for Life and what's your aim?
So Gotcha for Life has started off the back of the Man Up program, and we talk about building emotional muscle and getting people mentally fit. Feel all the feels and be human. And we go into schools, over 150,000 school kids last year. I go into corporations. I'm banging down the door all the time, trying to get as much money as possible so we can get more facilitators into more schools. We built the Mental Fitness Gym, which for all your listeners, completely free. Mental Fitness Gym, you click on it. It's an app, it's a website, and takes 30 seconds to log in. It'll never cost you a dime, and you can grab whatever you want from that. There's so many great exercises, people you may know, celebs, all the way through to people going, hey, this is what works for me. We're building that all the time. Every month we've got little fixes and we've got extra activities, and I'm hoping it's going to be a go-to place for everyone on the planet eventually, to have that just there amongst your phone screen to click on and just get a little bit of advice every day to work on that emotional muscle and to get mentally fit. I've talked about 0 suicides. That's the goal, because one is too many. It's going to take generations. It's going to take hard work, but people like you and me, and hopefully some people listening who have been inspired perhaps in a little way to go, right, I'm going to be a better mate or a better husband or a better uncle, whatever roles we play, and we play many, it's going to be a bit more connected to the people that I love. You don't need to be in love with everyone. You don't have to have big, deep and meaningfuls all the time. Work out who your village is and then go to work on them to make sure that they know that they can come to you and talk to you about anything. And that's the greatest role that you can play as a human being, is being that person that someone sees and goes, I can talk to them about anything. And if you become that person to your group of friends, and you got your work village, you got your home village, heart village, if you can be that guy or that girl, oh my goodness. I don't think you can have any more fulfilling relationships than that. So Gotcha we're about $23 million we've raised over the last 9 years. We continually are fundraising. People do runs for us. People do amazing things for us. There's a couple of corporate partners, Chemist Warehouse and Shaw and Partners, who go to their wallets every year and go, we love what you do, here's a chunk. And there's 18 of us now, and we're out there every single day doing the best we possibly can to build emotional muscle and mental fitness, and making that a normal conversation. I want in a couple of generations' time people talking about going to the gym
Mm.
like they do physically. Well, I want them to be talking about the mental gym as well, and that's why I never want to put any price on the gym. I don't want any hurdles. You can just literally one night in your own room just download it, check it out, see what it's like. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. But I promise you, if you stick with it like anything, it turns into a habit, and there might be something there that changes your life. Or if you send it to one of your village, they might say to you a month later, "Oh, mate, thanks so much for that. That's really helped me." And that's what it's Gotcha for Life is all about.
I really love that because you've helped, thousands and thousands of people, build that emotional muscle that you're talking about. But something that I feel like is just as powerful as the way that you've challenged what it means to be a man in today's world, especially with the series Man Up. What did that reveal to you about masculinity and how we are raising young boys?
Well, very similar to New Zealand, because they did a Man Up in New Zealand as well. In fact, you would have been a perfect person to do that, actually. But um, what it basically revealed to me was pretty much what I think we all know, is that we've been sort of brought up to sort of man up and shut up and be stoic. And, like you said earlier, look around, everyone's got stuff going on. Why should I be adding my stuff to their stuff, Well, that's killing us. Like if that was a process for work and you'd get 7 men, 2 women, one every 8 minutes attempting, like you'd go, well, let's change the process. So that's what we need to do. And it's going to take generations, because it's taken us generations to get where we are. You got test matches at the moment with the All Blacks and France. We're about to play the Lions.
Mm.
It's just standing there, national anthem, bashing each other. This is what it's about. People drinking beers and paying big amount of money to go on boys' trip, to go on these. That stuff is bloody fantastic, right? It makes us tick.
Mm.
But there's got to be a part of us where when you're going on that rugby trip, there's one bloke in that group that you love more than someone else. When the rugby trip's done, just tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, mate, I need to talk to you about something. That's proper friendship, you know what I mean? And that's what we need to start doing. So Man Up just nailed that into me, that we are so stoic, and we have so much stigma around not being able to handle our stuff. And as you have said very eloquently on this show, when you just word vomited to that lady, you felt better. I've said the same thing. I felt so much lighter coming out with my lady. That's vulnerability. We should be leading with that, and it doesn't make us any less manly. In fact, I think much harder to walk up to someone and tell them what's truly going on than turn away and bury it on top of the stuff that you turned away and buried the day before. Manliness is actually having the guts to talk about this stuff, not going, here I am, I can handle this myself. That's just bullshit. It's just not true. And the stats will tell us that. So stop it. Line in the sand time. Let's get together as a group of people, love each other to the point where you can talk about anything without any fear of judgment. And that's the bottom line. That should be the only thing that we should be worried about as a human being that love other people. Be that person.
Couldn't agree more. I think that it's more courageous. It's more strength and courageous to speak about your vulnerabilities, to speak about your weaknesses, than it is to bury it. You
Yep.
know, you
Yep.
want to show strength. Sit down and have a vulnerable conversation. That is strength. That is hard. That is a hard thing to do. The easiest thing you possibly do is sweep it under carpet and pretend like it doesn't exist. So
Yep.
I completely agree with you there, and I really love that you've now got a children's book, Boys Will Cry.
Yeah.
I love that because you're modeling that, to the next generation, to the next kids coming up, that it's okay. It's okay if you want to have a cry. And I know me and Jordan are talking about sort of having kids soon, and I read so much. I read so many books around parenting, around emotional regulation with kids. It's almost like a bit of a bit of an addiction at the moment, where I've listened to podcasts, audio books. Like I'm so into, like, how do I model this to my kids? How do I show that emotional regulation? I think that's so important for kids, and because there's something that I struggle with is when I was growing up is putting putting names to feelings. I didn't know why I felt like this. I didn't even know what that feeling was. I just
Yeah.
felt like, so I had no education around feelings, around, you know, knowing that it's okay to feel like this. And so that for me, like that was something that I really wanted to change and probably educate myself on, or around emotional education with young kids. So I really do love that you've got the book out. Is it out? Is it out yet?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
out. It's going good. It's going good. Everyone's very happy at Penguin, and I'm hoping to do a bit of a series if I can. But a couple of things, Elliot. Um, just be you, mate. You'll be absolutely fine. You don't need to stress yourself out with any more podcasts or any more. But I mean, of course, learning is great, and we never stop it. But
Mm,
you'll be okay, brother. You'll be absolutely fine. That's firstly. Secondly, good luck trying. Not the easiest thing in the world, as my wife and I worked out. Like
mm.
you try so long trying not to get pregnant, and then all of a sudden you go, okay, we're ready now, and it's like, oh, what do you mean? It doesn't work the first month? You know, some people it does, but for us, it was a very difficult thing. But we worked out in the end. It was all great. We had three little rippers, Jack, Ella, and Abby, and they're our lives. And um, I was probably a bit more old school, like your old man initially, and then this man up and gotcha for life just changed me forever. And the last 10 years has been just such a beautiful thing being their dad. And like anything, mate, if you've got a good partner that gets you and understands you, and you're not out there banging along by yourself, I've got a cracker, you've got a cracker by the sounds of it. So doing that together is just so unreal. So you'll be absolutely fine, mate. And doing the book was awesome. The kids book's really important for the illustrations more than anything. And the illustrator, absolute champ. I've actually got the book. I got my laptop sitting on the book here because
Nice.
I had five of them because I wanted to be lifted up a bit, and I've given four away. So I'll send one to you. So
Oh, I'd love that.
send me your address. But yeah, boys do cry, and this basically it's a little fella who's not having a good day. From spilling his milk at brekkie to having a spaceship land on his toe on the way to work, to school. Yeah, and he just builds up this emotion. He gets bluer and bluer and bluer and bluer as the day goes on, as he's holding on and holding on. And eventually he shows some emotion and vulnerability with his dad at night. And he realized feeling all the feels is what he should be doing. And it's just a really simple book. Um, as I said, beautifully illustrated by Heath McKenzie. I think it's $10, so it's not going to break the bank. And I'm hoping that not only the kids will get something from it, but the carers, whether that's mum or dad or grandma and granddad or whoever it might be, they might pick up the theme of the book, which is feel all the feels. And it's all right to show some emotion. There's got to be a reason we've got tears, right? And got tear ducts and stuff. We should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we burst into tears every 5 minutes, but to have someone that you can be that vulnerable with is just gold, and those relationships are the ones that I strive for now. I've got a lot of mates, but I've only got a few friends, and I love them all, but the friends get my full attention because it's just, they've shown me vulnerability. I've shown them vulnerability, and our friendship level is just so tight and so real. I really know who my village is, and that's taken a bit of time to get there, but I have.
I've read a fair bit of Bruno Brown. She does a lot of books around vulnerability, and she talks about it. It doesn't, it doesn't matter how rich you are or funny you are, or how many friends you got. She talks about how you make people feel determines a friendship, determines a lasting relationship, and
Yeah,
being vulnerable is the quickest and easiest way to that real connection. And it's often seen, to be, so what we're talking about now, to be too scary to be vulnerable, but it's the easiest way to make a long lasting friendship with someone. And you talked about it, with your close friends, is that you've all shown vulnerability with each other, and that connection you must have with each other must be so, so strong. And I feel the same way with, I've got 5 really, really good friends, my best mates. We've been in preschool together, so before grade 1. So we've known each other for the last 30 years, and we've gone through some pretty dark times, and we've had the best times of it. And what you said then, I think back to it. you know, how we got so close wasn't during the good times. Although the good times were great, and we've traveled together, we've partied together, we've gone through some massive highs. But what makes our connection so strong is actually the low times. Is it the times that we were struggling? Is the times that they were helping us up. We needed a hand on the shoulder. We needed someone to talk to. We had our hearts broken, or we were got dropped from the footy team, or we lost our job, or we've got no money, you lost our house, or you were in some really dark spots, and they were there for you.
Yeah.
Not just in the highs, but the lows. Yeah.
True friendship comes from the darker times.
Mm.
The good times, you're hoping to have many more of those, but they're just awesome, right? And they fly by, and you're thinking of your five mates now. Your listeners are thinking of their village now, and they're probably got a little memory of something, and you're like, oh God, oh that night, or oh that was the best, or God that was embarrassing, or when your heart gets broken, like you say, and who do you turn to, and who helps you through that? That builds why the good times are so good. That's that human feeling all the feels. It's this roller coaster. If you're having a bad day, you're not necessarily depressed. If you're a bit sort of excited about something, or you're a little bit nervous, doesn't mean you're anxious. You're just a bit anxious at that moment. You haven't been you got anxiety.
Mm.
It's all that sort of stuff that comes from being able to just talk to your mates, getting it out, and them just feeling that they've got your back, and then you can just move on with life. But imagine going through life and not having those five guys, not having your missus, not having the relationship you now have with your dad, a pretty lonely place. And I speak to a lot of men, and there's a lot of lonely men in particular in Australia, and I'd assume the same in New Zealand, which are just stuck. They haven't got the emotional muscle to talk about the stuff. If they were given the safe place, if they were given the time for people to listen to them, they could have that conversation breakthrough like you did with your dad. They'll probably die never having that convo, and that's really sad. And we don't want this new generation to feel that that's the case.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, mate. I'm just going to finish off with some quick fire questions. I know you like to chat, so you can answer these.
How dare you?
I'm the same, mate. If we're in the studio together, it'd be going for a while. Yeah, so you can answer these as quickly or as short as you'd like.
Okay.
What are your 3 non-negotiables for living a healthy and full life?
Oh, okay. No phones in the bedroom. My village, making sure I look after them, and leading with vulnerability.
Love that. Who's your hero?
It's such a good question. I ask school kids this all the time and then get them to text who it is, and I get the best response. I would say my hero is my wife. The reason why she is my hero, because it hasn't always been the case. I've just seen the woman that she's turned into in the last few years, on top of being the best mother, and then all the fun stuff we did before we had any responsibility. So we've been through everything together. So I'll say my wife, Vicky.
How have you defined success in your life?
I would define success as having people that look at you and want you around.
Love that. What has fatherhood taught you about life and how we should be living?
Be flexible. It's not always going to be what happens in the podcast or in the exercise books that you read. But if you just lead with kindness and a bit of vulnerability yourself, it'll make your kids realize they don't have to be perfect, because they put so much pressure on themselves, and their friendship groups do the same thing. So as soon as I showed some vulnerability to my son, it changed our relationship. And then our daughters saw that. And now the 5 of us are on this chat, like I said, 3 all overseas. We're empty nesters. It's the best relationship. And we can't wait to be with each other, sharing stuff together. So yeah, being flexible and less like your own mum and dad.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I went and saw Gabor Mate and a seminar. I'm not too sure if you're familiar with Gabor Mate.
No.
He's an expert in trauma and addiction and early child development and parenting. And was so interested in all those things that relate to my story. And then me wanting to be a parent myself, I went there and I had a question lined up, like all the people getting the mics, and I paid for the to the VIP session, and I was going to stand up and ask my question. And then he picked a girl that was next to me, and she asked the exact question that I was going to ask was, how do I not pass down my trauma to my kids?
Yeah, it's big.
Because I was very worried, and I still am a little bit worried about them experiencing what I experienced going through my adolescence and figuring life out. And his response was, "Your children won't be perfect, and neither will your parenting. There's no such thing as perfect parenting. So get pretty much what you said. Get that out of your window. You're never going to be perfect at it."
Yeah,
She was like, she laughed, and I was laughing too, because I was like, that's my question. And then he said, you know, if you want to be the best parent, be the best person you can be. So if you're worried about some things about your childhood, maybe they're the things that you need to work on. So if you can work on, you know, those things, that will translate to you being a good parent. So that's what sort of obviously motivated me, because I know there's some little triggers in who I am, that I'm never going to be perfect. I understand that. But if I can get that 1% better every day, if I can just look back and lay in bed and go, yeah, I got a little bit better today. It doesn't have to be
yeah,
perfect. It doesn't have to be major steps. I don't have to move mountains, but if I can wake up every day and try to be a better person, I think
yeah.
it'll be for good.
Have a crack. I've said to my kids, turn up 5 minutes before you're meant to turn up, right? If
Love
it's
that.
9 o'clock, it's 5 to 9. It's not
Yeah.
9 o'clock. Firstly, look people in the eye and keep doing it consistently, and you will beat the shit out of 90% of people, because they do not do those simple things. And the other thing is that you got to remember that the kids are watching and listening to everything. They
Mm,
miss nothing. And I'm talking about from like really young. They are just so observant and so clever, and their brains are developing, and they are just super sponges. So, my grandfather said to me, because he was 14 when he had to get his dad out of my granddad out of the pub, and he had to leave school and he had to look after his dad. And his dad was an alcoholic, and he never drunk a day in his life. And he said, "Be the guy with your 7-year-old daughter standing next to you."
oh, I love that.
So just think, everything that you do, you've got your 7-year-old daughter right next to you, looking up, going, why is daddy shouting? Why is daddy doing that? That's not right. That's not what my daddy does. So that's a really good, I never forgot it. It's such an important thing, if you can think about it, because there's plenty of times you want to blow up, plenty of times you feel aggrieved and mad and all that stuff. Just handle every situation as if your 7-year-old daughter's there, and it might stop you putting your foot in it.
Mate, that's going to stick with me for a long, long time. That one, I love that. When it's all said and done, you know, the radio, the Gotcha for Life, the talks, the media that you do, what do you hope for people to remember you for?
That's big. I would love for people to go, again, they want me around, like I'm good company and good fun and all that sort of stuff. But I'd love to have made a difference. I want to make mental fitness a subject at school. I want to walk into rooms and have people walk out going, God, I got something from that, like a really positive experience every time someone's seen me or heard me. So that's what I'll keep going for. And that'd be a pretty nice legacy, I reckon. And um, my kids and wife thinking that I'm all right too would help.
I love that. If you could leave one message behind for the next generation of men, something to live by, something to lean on, what would that message be?
Yeah. Have warts and all conversations, no matter what.
Mm, yes, love that.
Don't
I've
worry
actually
alone.
I've actually got a closing tradition of the podcast where I get friends and family. They sent in questions for the guest. So we've got Belinda. I think she works with you at Got You for Life. What's one piece of advice you'd give to your 18-year-old self to prepare him for the road ahead?
Yeah. I probably put a lot of pressure on myself as an 18-year-old. I left a school that was posh with boaters and blazers, and I was never the sharpest tool in the shed. So I was like, God, I'm well behind these blokes already. They're all going to go off to uni. They got, in the old HSC, their ATAR equivalent was 90 plus, and I was in the 50s. And I thought, oh, well, what am I ever going to do? I would say to myself, my 18-year-old self, it's okay, mate.
Mm,
You'll be okay. You don't need to have worked it out by the time you're 18 or 19. In fact, I'm still working stuff out today, and that's that curiosity that we spoke about at the start of the podcast. I was 38 before I got into media. I had a whole life before then, and I think that's why I handled the ups and downs of the media and radio world that can be pretty brutal better than most, because I had seen life experience and stuff. So I say to kids all the time, it's a number. Don't let it define you. And I probably would say that to myself as an 18-year-old too, because I worried too much about that. I'd already missed the boat, and I was never going to be successful because I wasn't good at school. School's just a part of it, you know. For me now, looking back, school was all about meeting a great bunch of blokes, a bit like you, blokes that I knew at Pimble Public through to Knox Prep and then Knox Grammar. I've been on a WhatsApp chat with them this morning, had 40 ridiculous, stupid messages between ourselves, over the boxing match last night and over when we're going to meet up tomorrow for a brekkie, that's the best. I'm just so fortunate to have those group of mates, and that's what school gave me. And then everything else came from experience, curiosity, opening up my eyes, and trying not to be a complete dick all the time, try to be kind and considerate.
Yeah, I love that. And I resonate with that a lot because I honestly thought, I was a failure. When I was at school, because I just didn't understand anything. I didn't get anything. I didn't pick up anything quickly. School for me was a sport. Like I went to a sports school, so I went into the army after I finished school. That was always planned. I planned that a year before grade 12. So I changed all my subject at school. I had to do English and maths, and because I went to a sports school, I joined the volleyball team, I joined the basketball team, I joined the touch footy team, the league, the union, the AFL team. I did surf class. So my year 12, all my mates were worried about their OPs and getting good grades. I was out there surfing in the morning, then I'd go play tennis, and then I would have a bit of English and a bit of maths, and that was like my year 12 was amazing in that way. But I left year 12 going, oh shit, if I don't make it in sport, who am I going to be? What am I going to be? How am I going to earn money? I put too much pressure on myself to make it, and I thought, well, what is making it? Like, well, what's making it to me? And I look back on it now. I never regret what I went through. I never look back on it with a bad light. Where I used to think, oh, why did I have to go through that? Now I know why I had to go through that, because of my outlook on life, the gratitude I have for everyone in my life, for the love I have for myself. I wouldn't take any of that back, because that's made the person that I am today. But yeah, I did put a lot of pressure on myself to make it in rugby, and I was always moving the goalposts. When I stopped playing rugby, I thought I was a failure. Even then, even though the teams that I made, I played professionally, I achieved everything that I wanted to. I always felt like I didn't achieve enough. I felt like I didn't live up to my full potential. I felt like I left more in the tank. And I there was a 10-year reunion at my high school, and they were posting photos. And in the photo was a photo of the yearbook, and in the yearbook it was like your name. You can do a favorite movie quote or something like that. My one was 10 years from now, and it said, Elliot Hagan, 10 years from now I'll be playing professional rugby. And I couldn't make the school reunion because I was away playing professional rugby. And I was in Boston, New York or Boston, playing professional rugby, and I couldn't make it. And I was thinking that whole time, I was like, I'm a failure. Like I didn't reach the heights that I should have. And I saw that photo, and it was like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. All this pressure and all these things I was putting on myself. I read it, and it said, Elliot Hagan, 10 years from now, playing professional rugby. And I'm in my team hotel, about to play a professional game of footy the next day. And I'm just thinking, it wasn't to play, 50 tests for the Wallabies. It wasn't play to, play 100 games for the Reds. It wasn't to do any of that. 17-year-old Elliot said, play professional rugby. I wasn't very, I wasn't very detailed with it, but that's exactly what I've done over the last, 12 years of playing rugby. Like I did it. I did what the 17-year-old Elliot wanted to do. So I can, hold my head high and be proud of what I've achieved over the last, 12 years.
Absolutely, you can. But even more importantly, the work you've done on yourself, where you were putting on the sunnies 10 years later, coming out of that tunnel. Good on you for ringing your mate and telling him that. Make sure you ring your therapist or counselor that helped you so much. You'll help a whole lot of people with this podcast. Keep listening to that very smart wife of yours. and and don't worry too much about this dad stuff. There is no directions on the can. Each kid is slightly different. Remember that they're looking and hearing everything, and just be as kind as you can be, mate. And it's a team job. You don't have to go and score the solo chip over the top try. You can
You
work
watching my highlights, have you?
Actually, I did, but I never saw you score a try. But no, I'm only joking. But yeah, it's a pretty cool journey you're about to start. I'd love to rewind 20 odd years. I'm 57 in December. I'm coming up to the end of the third quarter. About to start the fourth in a couple of years. If my health stays healthy, and that's an exciting thing too. But gee whiz, mate, think of the differences you can make now that we're having these conversations a bit more readily. Just say yes to everything, right? Have a crack at everything and keep being you.
Appreciate it. Gus, thank you so much for what you've shared today. You've definitely, you're showing a lot of people that real strength isn't pretending that you're not okay. It's being brave enough to say that you are not okay. And, that kind of honesty saves lives. And I really appreciate meeting you and having this conversation, and all the work that you're doing. I really admire and respect you so much. And hopefully one day I would love to meet you in person and delve a little bit deeper into our chat. But again, mate, so grateful to have this opportunity to chat with you.
Elliot, absolute pleasure to you and your listeners, mate. And get them all to download that Mental Fitness Gym app. It's completely free and it might really help them. But most importantly, keep listening to you. I think
appreciate it,
right.
Mate. Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Mind Your Head. If you'd like to support the show, be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really supports the show and helps others discover us. Don't forget to join us on Instagram and TikTok at mindyourhead.podcast.